What's up, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Hooked on Sports here on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. My name is John Flynn, and thank you so very much for listening to this week's episode of Hooked on Sports. So remember, you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. You can also watch me on YouTube at my channel. So the links should be in the descriptions on the Hooked on Sports Instagram page. So we're gonna get into a lot about what transpired in the NFL over the weekend because I have a list of 6 winners and 6 losers from the weekend that was in the National Football League. I'm gonna sprinkle in I'm gonna sprinkle in 4 things at the end with four different subjects at the end, including the college football playoff, the hot stove, and some a couple of notes in the NBA as well. So we're gonna get into those at the end, but this is gonna be my recap of what happened in Week 15 of the NFL, and I can do that now that all the games have come to an end. I'm recording this podcast at 12:36 in the morning Eastern time on Tuesday, about an hour after the conclusion of the Miami Dolphins losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers and being eliminated from postseason contention. I took the Steelers to win, but I look really dumb taking the Dolphins with the points. So now I am 1-13 against the spread picking Steeler games this year. And by the way, I should tell you that I went 11-5 this week picking the winners and losers. I went 7-9 against the spread, so I'm now 107 116 on the season, and then straight up I am 132 80-1, I believe. The last time the last time I checked those. I'm going to give you I'm going to and some of these winners and losers could interchange because I think a couple of games had one of the big winners and losers on my list. So I'm going to start with what transpired in Buffalo with the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. The game was in Foxborough. The Patriots had a chance to put a bow wrap on the AFC East with the victory over the Bills. And I believe as much as I respected the Patriots and I made note of that. I told you this week on Thursday that the Bills were going to march into Foxborough and defeat the New England Patriots, but I think it's more of how the Bills won the game. It really stands out as why they are a big winner this week. So the Patriots were down 21-0. They were about to boat race the Bills the heck out of the AFC East and Foxborough. So, but the Bills said not on my watch, and especially Josh Allen not on my watch. And 2 things I told you that needed to happen for the Bills to win this game. One, Josh Allen plays at an MVP caliber level. He did. 193 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and he was effective on the ground as well. And James Cook to get over 100 yards rushing. He got 107 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in the victory. And now Josh Allen's MVP odds are up to plus 550, only behind Drake May and Matthew Stafford. And Stafford took a big lead in the MVP race after his performance against his former team, the Lions, in LA on Sunday. But I thought there were some key contributors in there as well, and not just because of James Cook and Allen. The offensive line I thought held up really well. I thought Joe Brady called a great game, especially in the second half, and that he adjusted accordingly, and he realized that the way for the Bills to win is let Josh Allen be Superman and expand the offense vertically. That's what he did. So I give the Bills a lot of credit for that. excellent, superb game plan coming out of the half by Sean McDermott and as after the Patriots scored 24 points in the first half. It seemed like the Bills had no answers, but they really tightened up on the run defense as they tried to make Drake May win through the air, which he couldn't do much. He couldn't do that in the second half. The only Patriots touchdown in the second half came on that tremendous run by Trevion Henderson in the fourth quarter, which gave the Patriots a 31-28 lead after blowing a 24-7 lead. So Bills scored 21 answered. The Patriots punched back with a Trevion Henderson touchdown, and then the Bills immediately respond with a game-winning touchdown drive. So after that, and then the Bills defense held on to secure the victory. So Matt Milano, he has not had a great year. It's definitely to his standards, but man, he showed up. He had a great day. Two tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Trey White had his best game of the season. He had that interception on Drake May in the third quarter. It was a one-on-one opportunity. And he took advantage of it. I didn't like the throw at all. But I really wouldn't have mattered anyway because with the interception, it felt like the form of a punt, which gave the Bills field position inside their own 20-yard line after that. But I also think that this is a character building, or was a character building win for the Bills. And of course, the Patriots are the only team that had defeated the Bills at home this season. The Bills were 6-1 at home, with the one loss was to New England, a game where the Bills shot themselves in the foot so many times in that game. So they said not in the second half that they reminded the league just how dangerous they are, and now the Bills get a much needed win. The AFC East is very much up in the air now. Because now the Bills are just a game behind the Patriots, and the Patriots have a tough one coming up in Baltimore coming up on Sunday night, and then the Bills have the Browns on the road, which I believe will be an easy win, and then they've got the Philadelphia Eagles and they got the Jets at home to the last 2 regular season games at the old stadium before they move into the new one starting next season. So I think the Bills should run the table and finish 13-4. So it's going to be that Patriots Ravens game could loom large when you look at the AFC East and the AFC North, because the Steelers right now have a 1-game lead over Baltimore. They had just beaten Baltimore last week, and the Ravens and Steelers both won their games over the weekend. So the Steelers have a 1-game lead over Baltimore in the AFC East. So it's and as for the Patriots, I did not think they were as good as their 11-2 record indicates, and as great as Mike Vrabel has been, he is probably going to be the coach of the year, barring anything unforeseen. But this game was more of a reflection of some of the shortcomings that the Patriots roster had going into the season, and the Patriots are not a perfect roster by any means, but they're well coached, and I didn't like the approach from Josh McDaniels after halftime. I thought they should have tried to run the ball more. Well, they said they did, but they should have been more aggressive coming out of halftime. Especially after the Bills opened the second half with a touchdown drive, which started the 24-7 comeback. There, I was a little disappointed on that, but now it's anyone's game in the AFC East with that. So great job by the Bills defeating the Patriots. We also, I think, a big winner over the weekend was the Denver Broncos, and this is going to be both Denver being a winner and the Green Bay Packers being a loser for very obvious reasons. But but the Broncos came in. I wasn't sure about them as an 11-2 team because I mean they're well coached. I think the concern is the quarterback play, but I think what the Broncos proved in their comeback victory, they were down 9 points, and Micah Parsons got hurt, and then they took advantage of that, which I totally get, and is why the Broncos won, but the Broncos have an outstanding roster. If you take out the quarterback, and Bo Nix is a decent quarterback, he's not an elite quarterback per se, but when you look at the offensive line, you look at the running attack, the defense, all those things could come together. And if Denver plays Buffalo on Championship Sunday, I certainly will not bat an eye if that is going to be the case. In this one, because I think right now the Broncos, the Bills, and the Houston Texans are three of the better teams in the conference. I think Jacksonville has something to say on that. We'll get into them in a little bit, but the Broncos got some huge contributions from a lot of key players in that ball game on Sunday. I mean, apart from Bo Nix, and by the way, Bo Nix, he played a great game. He 23 of 34, 302 yards, 4 touchdowns. RJ Harvey's a touchdown, 65 yards rushing. So Lil Jordan Humphrey, Troy Franklin, Cortland Sutton, and Michael Bandy all caught touchdowns. I thought that was a great performance overall by the Broncos offensively in that game. So now Denver is 12-2. They're in the driver's seat for the 1 seed in the AFC. And the last time they were this good this late into the season, the Super Bowl was played in San Francisco that season, Santa Clara, and that's where the Super Bowl is going to be. So the AFC could go through Denver when it's all said and done, and I think it's going to be tough to beat a Sean Payton-led coach team in the Mile High in these conditions. So outstanding job by the Broncos. Find a way to win, and I think more importantly, finding ways to stay in the game in the first half because it could have gotten ugly quick, but give the Broncos credit for when Parsons was out there even. So, but excellent job by the Broncos of finding a way to win. And now you look at the Broncos' upcoming schedule. They got Jacksonville. It's not going to be easy, but so I don't know who's going to win that game. That's truly a coin flip game, and that'll be one of the games I'll be discussing on the podcast on Thursday in depth before we get into the picks. And then they have Kansas City, which we'll get to, and then they finish the season at home against the Chargers in Week 18. So it's going to be a challenging schedule, but I think it's one the Broncos can handle, and I think the Broncos can win at least 2 of those 3 games. And if they do have that, I think that they'll wind up being the 1 seed in the AFC. Conversely, what a blow! I mean, if you are a Green Bay Packers fan, you have to be sick to your stomach because Micah Parsons tore his ACL and he is out for the rest of the season, and it is a devastating injury for the Packers, and that definitely has some ramifications on the Packers and where they go afterwards. So and just to think that the type of season that Micah Parsons had this season, and of course I would trade 2 first-round picks for someone like Micah Parsons. I mean, if I'm the Packers, right now you don't have your first-round pick in 26 and 27. Should you regret trading for Micah Parsons? No. You shouldn't regret trading for Micah Parsons. So, You have to be willing to take that risk and gamble. The Packers did. There was a lot of good reason to trade him because the Packers had an issue with getting to the quarterback. He had 12 and a half sacks this year and a couple of forced fumbles this season. So that sucks if you are a fan of the Green Bay Packers. And Jordan Love turned back into a pumpkin. He threw 2 interceptions in the loss to Denver. So that is such a tough thing to swallow for the Packers. And now, if the Packers are gonna make the Packers will still be should be in the playoffs. They'll get to 10 wins somehow. But now this takes the Packers out of being in the conversation of teams that you can really see representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. I mean, could you think about the Rams? You're thinking about Seattle, whoever comes out of that division. We'll see how Caleb Williams plays in the playoffs. Maybe Chicago will have something to say about that. Maybe Philadelphia, based upon how they bounced back and got right on Sunday, might have something to do with that. So, but I just can't see the Green Bay Packers making a run in the NFC playoffs without Micah Parsons. He was that important to the defense, and he was a big reason why the Packers entered this past week atop the NFC North and were a top 2 seed in the NFC. So that is a big blow for the Green Bay Packers. So we'll get into that. Speaking of winners, how about the Philadelphia Eagles? And the Eagles game against the Raiders had a lot of overtones to what transpired against the Arizona Cardinals 2 years ago in a late season game. The Cardinals were 11.5-point dogs. They came back and beat the Eagles on that day, but yeah, sure. The Eagles beat the Raiders, the worst team in the NFL. The chances are they'll wind up getting the number 1 pick in the NFL draft coming up next year. So you have that. But I just think the way that they established themselves, Jalen Hurts getting the ball to his receivers, I think is a big deal. AJ Brown, it took 2 months for the 2.5 months for the Philadelphia Eagles to discover who AJ Brown was. So it was important getting him into it. He is as good as anybody in man coverage as any receiver in the NFL, and it proves so otherwise. And Vic Fangio posted a shutout victory for the Eagles on defense, and having a defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio. I remember Vic Fangio played a big role in the game plan in the Eagles' Super Bowl victory over Kansas City with that brilliant game plan on stopping Mahomes. But now with the Eagles win coupled with the Cowboys loss, the Eagles are on the verge of winning the NFC East, breaking the division's 21-year drought of not having one team win the division for consecutive years. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to do that, and they'll be at worst the 3 seed in the NFC playoffs. So we have that as a winner. I'm going to give you another. I'm going to give you a loser for this one, and for the next one. I think a big loser for this week is the 2026 Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So he tore his ACL at the end of the game. His season is ended. He underwent surgery last night in Dallas, Texas. Is that the immediate recovery from the injury is well underway. And the Chiefs also got eliminated from postseason contention for the first time since the 2014 season. So the Chiefs' run of 10 straight years making the playoffs has come to an end. The season is over. and now the Chiefs have to start picking up the pieces and figure out what direction they want to go in starting next year. So. And I think this season boiled down to a couple of things. One, the Chiefs did not have the talent at the wide receiver position that they had few years ago when Tyreek Hill was still there. The opposing defenses did not fear the deep ball threat, so that was a problem. Number two, they weren't able to run the football effectively this season, and they haven't had an effective running game for the last few years, which is kind of amazing considering that they won a couple of championships in the last 4 years. So you had that, and then the Chiefs' inability to get to the quarterback efficiently was really another straw, and those three things were factored out. They were so inconsistent all year, and now the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be playing meaningless football for the first time in a very long time. So that's the epitaph on the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs, and really the epitaph on the 2026 Kansas City Chiefs. So because Mahomes isn't going to play next year, and even if he does miraculously come back, he won't be even close to where he was before the ACL injury. So just terrible news for the Kansas City Chiefs. They lose arguably the second or third greatest quarterback in NFL history for the next year, and they also lost to the Chargers, and I called that upset. And they are eliminated from the playoffs in the process because of wins by the Bills and the Texans, among other teams in the AFC wildcard hunt. Now I'm going to give you another loser now, and that is Shedeur Sanders, and I could not believe the media hype, the NFL and the insiders and the experts would give it around Shedeur Sanders over the last few weeks since he became the starter for the Browns. And look, Shedeur Sanders, before the game against the Bears, he had a couple of decent statistical performances. You look at the game against the Raiders and against the Tennessee Titans, and they were all a result of yards after the catch, missed tackles all around, but for that, and now he faces a real defense in the Chicago Bears, and he turns back into a pumpkin. And he threw for 177 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, as the Browns got smoked 31-3 by the Chicago Bears on Sunday. And now you have that, and Shedeur Sanders was pretty much atrocious in that ball game, and I just think of how of the pathetic approach the Browns took into the drafting process, drafting two running backs, drafting two quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders was had a PFF grade of 33.2 in the Browns' loss to Chicago, and everything about how the Browns navigated this, everything about how Shedeur Sanders has navigated this has been repulsive, and I frankly think he's going to be out of the league in a couple of years. So Shedeur Sanders goes down as a loser in my book. And speaking of rookie quarterbacks, a big winner is Tyler Shough of the New Orleans Saints. Now there was some conversation about teams potentially thinking Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. I really didn't understand why Tyler Shough's name was in there because he was 25 and he was much older, so he has figures to have a lesser or a shorter career in the NFL than those other two. But what Tyler Shough has been doing over the last few weeks has been nothing short of inspiring. And the New Orleans Saints dealt a devastating blow to the Carolina Panthers' playoff chances on Sunday with a stirring 20-17 comeback victory. Part of it was aided by a late hit at the end by Carolina, which set up a winning field goal. But Tyler Shough, like he's kind of grown on me over the last few games. He's beaten Carolina twice. So he went on the road in Tampa, beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the following week. So he's been playing spoiler. And what Kellen Moore has done, I think he deserves a lot of credit as well. And I think Tyler Shough could be the hidden gem of the draft class when the wheels stop spinning. At this because he has the poise, he has the leadership, he makes some accurate throws. I think you look at Tyler Shough as maybe someone that could surprise in the future, and could he already be the second or third best quarterback in the NFC South? There's definitely a possibility with that. So credit to the Saints, but a terrible job by the Panthers. And by the way, I told you the Saints the Panthers were going to lose in New Orleans, and it was a divisional game. The Panthers, despite being 7-6, their point differential going into the game was -50. They were not as good as their record indicates, and I was amazed at how many at all the people that unanimously picked the Carolina Panthers to defeat the New Orleans Saints. I did not understand that at all, but the Saints win. They're 4-10, and they're quietly building a pretty decent culture down there in New Orleans. That's definitely going to carry over into next season. So next year the Saints, I think, are going to be better than people think, especially if they can start making making some alleviations for their salary cap in 2026 and beyond with that. So the Saints are Tyler Shough is a winner. I couldn't believe that. A big loser, speaking of staying in the NFC South, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers had a golden opportunity to separate themselves from Carolina with Carolina's loss. And they blew a 14-point fourth quarter lead to the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons, so who are dead and cooked. Michael Penix Jr. out for the year. Here comes Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins leads the Falcons from the dead and spoils the Bucs playoff chances on that. So, and I mean, what Todd Bowles has been without Liam Cohen, and we'll get to Liam Cohen in a second with Jacksonville, but Todd Bowles has done a terrible job this year. With managing some of these very winnable games in the NFC South, and now in a 5-day stretch, they lost at home to New Orleans. They lost at home to the Falcons, to two teams that are dead, buried, and cooked in 2025. So only to see their playoff chances come down to 2 games against Carolina coming up over the weekend. So first one I believe is going to be in Carolina in next week. Yeah, they're in Carolina this week, and then Carolina. Then Tampa Bay is home against Miami week 17, and then they finish the season home against Carolina. While Carolina has Tampa week 16 and at Tampa week 18, and then they host Seattle week 17, and that's going to feel like a loss. So I think week 16. I think this is it for Carolina. I mean, the Panthers are better than I told you the Panthers were better than people thought. People were going to think because of the pesky nature of this team and what the Panthers did down the stretch of the season last year, which carried over into this year. But man, that's a tough one to swallow for the Bucks fan. So I'm not so I have both a winner and a loser in the Jets Jags game. A huge winner in that is Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence has quietly played some pretty solid football. Entering the game against the Jets, but against the Jets, I know it's the Jets. So he had his first 300-yard passing output of the season, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the Jaguars smoked the Brady Cook and the Jets 48-20. Which meant the Jaguars stay in first place in the AFC South. They have a record. They have a record this season of 10-5. They a 10-4 record. So I was dead wrong on the Jaguars. They're making. I believe they're going to make the playoffs. And it's a huge credit to Trevor Lawrence. Huge credit to Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen has done a fantastic job this season with this organization and with this group of players. So I cannot think enough of the unbelievable turnaround the Jaguars have had, and now with the Colts basically not winning, it's going to be a fascinating tale to see how that division wounds up between Jacksonville and Houston at the end. So it's going to be a fascinating race there. I think that could come down. That could come down to the wire. So. A lot of good stuff over there, and then and then the loser of this is Steve Wilks, and I was one that gave Steve Wilks the benefit of the doubt because I disagreed with him with Steve Wilks being fired by San Francisco after the Super Bowl loss. It was because you didn't know who the replacement was, and I turned out to be right about that. And Steve Wilks didn't have the benefit of Talanoa Hufanga for the last bit of that 2023 season, when I thought that played a big role in the Super Bowl. He was not the reason why Dre Greenlaw got hurt in that game on a non-contact injury. So, but he's been terrible with the Jets, and after the latest, after getting spanked by the Dolphins and the Jaguars over the last 2 weeks, that Steve Wilks wound up getting fired by the Jets on Sunday, and there's definitely something to be looking at when it comes to the the Jaguars and the Jets, and with the Jets trying to go for the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and they might have to trade up to get someone like Fernando Mendoza, who, by the way, won the Heisman over the weekend. Well deserved. I felt if this felt inevitable for the last few weeks, but it was made official that Mendoza won the Heisman on Saturday night with the ceremony that he had. So great job by everybody involved in with that. So you have that. So I have one more winner and I have one more loser. My last winner of the week is Phillip Rivers, who wound up starting the game for the Chargers, and you have to give Phil Rivers a lot of credit here. He's 44 years old. So he was about to he was eligible for the Hall of Fame this election cycle, and he comes out of retirement, plays for the Colts. He's reunited with Shane Steichen from their time together with the Chargers, and he almost leads the Colts to the most improbable victory of the entire NFL season. And with doing the things that a quarterback needs to do to keep the Colts in the game, but Seattle wound up winning with 6 field goals from Jason Myers, and Seattle won the game. Sam Darnold did not play well against Lou Anarumo's defense, so which kind of made me regret. That was kind of the reason I regretted should regret laying the 13.5 points with Seattle, but Seattle wound up winning, so they stay tied with the Rams in the NFC West, and they'll be meeting in a monster game a couple of nights from now in Seattle, where first place in the NFC West is going to be on the line. But man, that's such a feel good story for the Colts and for Phil Rivers. And then finally, my last official loser of my last official loser of the week is Joe Schoen of the general manager of the Giants, and it's been another terrible season for the Giants. So they lost at home to a Commanders team without Jaden Daniels. Mind you, Marcus Mariota is as good a backup quarterback as any in the NFL. So, but the incredible roster mismanagement, and the part of it is Chris Mara and Tim McConnell, being relatives of the Mara family in these presumably fireproof roles within the Giants football ops department. But I think it's now clear now that Joe Schoen is going to be the ex-general manager of the New York Football Giants at the end of the season. So the Giants are getting a new GM. They're going to need a new head coach, and they really need a cleansing. They need sweeping changes for the Giants. And look, theoretically, with what the Giants have, I mean, you had a breakout game from Abdul Carter. So which was, hang on, which was in theory his best game of the season, bar none. But when you look at what it means for the long for what the Giants have, they have Jackson Dart on the rookie contract. They have. So the offensive line appears to finally be fixed. The offensive line's been playing really well this season, and they have some talented dudes on the defensive line as well. So they have some really good pieces in place. So, but now it's just a matter of how the Giants navigate the process. So what we're going to see, because smart people are telling us that the Giants vacancies for the head coaching and probably GM are going to be attractive, but we will find out and see what happens when the wheel stops spinning in the GM and coaching carousel for the New York Football Giants in 2026. I mean, and the Giants could have the number 1 overall pick in the draft if the season ended today. It doesn't. The New York Football Giants would have the first pick in the draft, and they would be in a golden position to get a lot of draft capital back in return, so someone can trade up and draft for Fernando Mendoza. So, what a mess for the New York Football Giants. Now, I did promise. I did promise at the start of the start of the show that I was going to touch on some quick things here on the process as well here. A couple of things in college, the CFP. The first round of the playoffs is this weekend. I think you're going to see 2 blowout victories by Oregon over JMU, and I think you're going to see Ole Miss smoke Tulane, and then 7 and 10. I mean, because I'm still pissed as a Notre Dame fan that they didn't make they did not make the playoff over Alabama and Miami. Miami got in because of the head-to-head, and Alabama got in because of the win against Georgia. and not with the eye test, which definitely says something. Having said that, though, I think Alabama's got a shot of beating Oklahoma over the weekend. Let's run down the times for round one of the playoffs. So it's this way you know. So the first game is Bama Oklahoma on Friday night at 8 p.m. on ABC and ESPN. Saturday at noon it will be the Miami versus Texas A&M game. That'll be on ABC, ESPN. So you got Oklahoma and A&M not far away from each other. And then you have the TNT games on Tulane and Ole Miss at 3:30. And then you have JMU and Oregon at 7:30 when it's all said and done there in that one. So how does Notre Dame not make the college football playoff? I mean, because Miami had two bad losses. Bama had two bad losses in the regular season. Then they did not look the part of a playoff team against Georgia in the SEC championship game. But man, that's going to be a tough one. And no, by the way, I think Texas A&M should beat Miami by a touchdown when it's all said and done. So that's going to be bad for the CFP. A couple of quickies in the NBA. So one is that the Oklahoma City Thunder got off to the best 25-game start in NBA history with a record of 24-1. They wound up losing in the semifinals of the NBA Cup to Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, the Thunder is so well built. The Thunder have the perfect roster for today's NBA. They are deep. They are talented. They're an elite defensive team. They're an elite offensive team. And Oklahoma City looks poised to win another championship this year. And then a couple things. The Eastern Conference, you have the Knicks. So that'll be playing the Spurs in the NBA Cup Finals tonight. I think that's going to be an interesting game on that one to see how that goes. I mean, we very much thought we were going to get OKC and the Knicks, which seemed like a popular NBA Finals matchup pick when the season started. I did not have the Knicks in the finals. I had Cleveland in the finals, but we'll see how that transpires with everything going on in the East with the Knicks. The Pistons are 21-5 after their victory over the Celtics last night. So it's going to be a fascinating tale on that one as well. So you have that, and then I think the big story in the winter meetings and the hot stove. I mean, a couple of things. Well, and I think it's more revolved around what the Mets didn't do. Was not bring back Edwin Diaz, not bring back Pete Alonso. Edwin Diaz signed a 3-year, $69 million contract with the Dodgers. I mean, I thought the Dodgers' biggest weakness was a lack of stability at the closer's role, and Edwin Diaz is at worst the second or third best reliever in baseball. So the Dodgers fans are going to get the treat of Timmy Trumpets in the ninth for the ninth inning. So that's good for the Dodgers fans, but that was kind of one that was kind of a head scratcher, more of a head scratcher to me than letting Pete Alonso walk, because Devin Williams, Edwin Diaz, 8-9 combo would be the best in the game for the next 3 years. So I think the Mets couldn't go above $22 million a year. To bring back Diaz, maybe the most important Met, where that made absolutely no sense to me. And then the Mets let Pete Alonso walk, 5 years, $155 million. I mean that was kind of more understandable because Mets really wanted to make this a more defensive oriented team, and they're seeing that with Marcus Semien with the trade they made with swapping him over for Semien, but It's a tough one, but when the Mets fans understand that the core of Nimmo, Alonso, McNeil was not winning, they were not the best at their positions at any point during their Mets careers. It certainly appears that Jeff McNeil is going to be traded, and with this, and now that they could run, and they Mets also did sign Jorge Polanco to a 2-year contract, which I think will make sense if he hits lefties better. That's and the Mets apparently struggled against lefties last year, so we'll see how that transpires on that. But quiet whispers, I think the Mets are a better team than people than people think. I think Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos are going to have monster seasons next year. So I'm saying that in whispers, and I don't and Mets obviously need starting pitching, but I don't think this was such a weak free agent class at the starting pitcher position to justify a big contract. So I mean, who knows? Maybe the Mets will somehow sign Framber Valdez to a 6-year contract, but I will disagree with that on arrival. But man, that is a tough one to swallow if you are a fan of the if you are a fan of the Mets here. So that's going to do it for this edition of Hooked on Sports. Thank you so very much for listening to the podcast today, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and this way you know where you'll be wherever you can find it. So until next time, this is John Flynn saying so long, and I'll be back here on the podcast next week. Take care, everybody, and so long.